this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Sega Master System game, which is something I haven't actually looked at on this channel yet. I have no idea why it has taken me this long to finally get to one, but hey, I'm doing one right now. So the first one we're taking a look at is Master of Darkness, and it was developed by Sims and published by Sega, and it was released in 1993 in North America and PAL, 1992 for Japan. So this is a pretty late entry Master System game if I say so myself, and it's a 2D action platformer with a horror setting, so much so that it almost looks exactly like Castlevania. It's basically Sega's answer to having their own Castlevania sort of game because they didn't get one until, well, Bloodlines. But I should also mention that this game was also available on the Game Gear, but I'm only taking a look at the Master System one. So first, let's talk about the story. So you play as a psychologist named Dr. Social, which just happens to be the most original name ever for a psychologist. So he's looking into a case about Jack the Ripper, but then he ends up finding out that Jack the Ripper is actually Dracula, so he just has to take him down, and well, that's literally all about it. Now there is quite a lot of cutscenes within the game, but it's usually just moving along the story and just trying to get him from point A to point B. So it's a very simple story, but there's nothing wrong with that, and yeah, I know the whole thing with Dracula does definitely seem like a rip-off of Castlevania for sure, because not only does this game play like it, but it even has like the whole like Dracula thing in it. Personally, this just doesn't bother me, because the story is not the most important thing in this game, so whatever, let's just move on and start talking about the gameplay. And like I said a bunch of times already, this game plays a lot like Castlevania, just from going from point A to point B. But in this game, you don't use a whip for a weapon. Your main weapon can actually be alternated by picking them up, such as like a knife, a rapier, and even a hammer, which is probably my favorite one, and a few others. And you get a secondary attack, which is very limited, but they're usually ranged ones, you know, like bombs, guns, boomerangs. And to get some of these power-ups, you gotta break some faces off the wall. I guess you can literally say that hammer smashed face. So I just had to make a reference to Cannibal Corpse, but anyways. There's plenty of secrets to find, many different enemies are trying to kill you, and bosses at the end of each stage. So just like Castlevania, this game is still very easy to pick up and play, but the game is still pretty fucking hard. It's also not a long game either, so it's one of those games where it's not very long, but it's pretty difficult. But one thing that makes this game to be really difficult is that sometimes when you break open one of these faces and an item drops, even if you pick up a weapon that you don't like the knife, you're pretty much stuck with that weapon until you can find another weapon drop. So just be careful when you open up some of these faces, because sometimes they can drop weapons that you may not want, because the knife is easily the shittiest weapon in the game. And because they're trolls, they like to put that weapon in random ones, so yeah, like I said, you just gotta be careful. So as I already said, it's a very simple and easy game to understand, but it is very challenging. So now, let's take a look at the controls, and I have to say, they're pretty good. So jumping, attacking, moving, all that is very simple. I mean, I don't think I need to explain that. Using your secondary attack is very easy, just hold up in the attack button and there you go. And they do feel pretty responsive, but the only one complaint I do have is that I do find that going up and down the stairs can be a little bit precise, but it's not too bad. I guess in this game they're a bit more strict, but at least I never got killed over it. But there were some times where I just had to fiddle around with the D-pad a bit, but it just never took long at all. But other than that, the controls are very responsive, and I don't have very much complaints whatsoever. So now, let's talk about the graphics, and the graphics in this game are very, very nice. So it has a very nice dark gothic setting, which suits the game very well, and I find it looks pretty awesome. And the backgrounds look very nice for a Sega Master System. Now some of the enemy designs are a bit generic, but then there are some that are pretty interesting, like these wax figures. But no real big complaints about the character designs, but I think they do look fine for this kind of game. And as for the mini cutscenes, well, it's just like a little tiny box with a picture in it, and it does look alright. At least it does somewhat represent what the story is showing. So no real complaints about it whatsoever. But overall for graphics, I think they look pretty amazing, especially for a Sega Master System, considering that this game was pretty late. So now, let's take a look at the music, and the music in this game is, as again, pretty damn awesome. So just like the graphics, the music suits the game very, very well, and I find it to be very well composed, but probably one of my favorite sounds in the game would probably have to be the victory theme. I don't know what it is about that sound effect, but I just really like it a lot. But I really think that the composer did a really good job of working with music on the Sega Master System. So as again, I really can't complain about anything about the music. And I just happen to like every single song within the game, so yes, that's definitely an awesome thing, so no complaints. So because we're taking a look at a Master System game, let's take a look at the box art, because we all know that that system is notorious for having some pretty terrible box art, but guess what? The box art for this game is actually awesome. So not only does it represent the game well, but it just looks very well detailed and I really like it. Don't you think it looks a little bit better than Teddy Boy on the Sega Master System? But either way, if I saw this game on a store shelf when I was a kid and I happened to own a Sega Master System, I would definitely buy this. So now, if you want to buy this game, this was kind of a fucked up situation because every time I was typing in Master of Darkness onto eBay or Amazon, nothing would show up. All that came up was a game called Miracle Warriors. I have no idea what's the deal with that, but all I can say is that I've never seen this game in person before, and I don't think I know anybody that even owns the game. So I do apologize that I can't give out a basic price point, but I did find the Game Gear version if that counts for something, so that version usually goes from like $10 to $20, usually about there. So if you want to buy this game, it's gonna be pretty tough considering that I just can't find anything about it, so I don't know, best of luck to you if you actually want to own it. Or you can just emulate it because, well, that just makes it so much easier. So now, if I were to rate this game, I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is a great game that has a very good challenge, and of course all the performances are great. Now yes, this is a Castlevania clone for sure, but just because something is considered as a clone game doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Now I don't know if any of you remember my review on the Creon Conquest on NES, where it's a game that plays exactly like Mega Man but you're using a witch. So to sum that all up, I thought that game was pretty good. Sure, it wasn't as good as Mega Man, but it was still a pretty good game, just tough as fuck. And I think this game is kind of like that, where yes, this game is great, but I don't think it's as good as Castlevania, mostly because, you know, the whole stair thing is a bit tricky, and the game is pretty short. But I'd still highly recommend this game, especially if you own a Sega Master System, because while it isn't the most original game ever, it's at least very fun, and it does have some pretty good ideas, like I like the whole Wax Museum part, and the fact that you can use different melee weapons is pretty cool. And while getting from the hammer to a knife really sucks, at least it does make some pretty good difficulty. If anything, I find that whole idea kinda reminds me of Ghosts and Goblins, but just, you know, not that fucking hard. But I'd still say that this is definitely a very good game. So if you want to play a Castlevania related game that just is not called Castlevania, then I can definitely recommend this to you. So with that being said, I really enjoyed this one, so thanks for watching and commenting.